Hello, in this video I want to talk about 7 fun or just different things that grow that you might already have in your kitchen. Number 1, sweet potato. These things are just kind of fun to grow. Not that I care to try to sprout it, um, but it just looks cool. It literally looks like some just vining plant, like a pothos almost, but just with a little bit more rigidness. It does not look that great because I did keep it in window so I did not have a lot of light, but I kept it just because it's kind of pretty. Just pretty different. You definitely see nice healthy roots. It grows off the potato itself. I've not put any nutrients in this, and I've had it for about a month and a half, and it was super easy. I had a potato, cut one open, I was like, it's starting to look a little bit older, I don't really want it. Grabbed the second one, poked a couple holes in it with a fork, dropped it in this glass container, and it started up in about a week or so. It starts up with these little things right here, these little shoots, and if you were to cut or kind of twist, try not to rip it off too high, but at the very base, you'd plant that and it would become a whole other plant. So technically, if I wanted to grow sweet potatoes, if it was the right time of year, would have done this earlier, but I would have 1, 2, 3, 4 off this one, and I had another one rip off the side. So 5 plants total. And if I would have picked them off, it might have put more energy in trying to create more instead of longer ones that will never produce anything. Obviously, it goes to say the next one very similar. It's just potatoes are just so easy. Same thing. You just wait a little bit too long, and you get these little eyes. And just cut off half an inch. You don't need that much. Half an inch off below the eye. Some potatoes will have multiple eyes, like this one's starting to sprout right here. 1, 2, and 3. A little small, but if you were to divide that here and then cut off the bottom, you can get 3 plants out of that. Even though potatoes are so dirt cheap, it's just a fun project. Sometimes things I like to grow, it doesn't always have to be like, oh, I'm trying to grow potatoes. It's what's pretty, what's cool, what's just fun. Just if you're bored, you're just itching, you're like, you know what, I don't have time to try to grow a full tomato plant and make sure that I'm doing multiple different methods for pollinating and making sure they're not getting blight and all this other stuff, enough water, or some things you can just set it and forget it and just kind of have fun with it. So this is a good experiment for like kids and stuff like this. This one too, but the water does get kind of scummy if you don't just dump it out, rinse the roots off, and add more water. But for the most part, I just kind of topped it off. There was 2 different periods where I went out of town. On one, another one I just forgot, and there was no water. It was bone dry, and it was still doing good. I mean, that's probably why I do have a few. Like this one's just a dead end, but it's a split off another one, so it continued somewhere else. But it's very resilient, and obviously, people typically like to do this method a lot too in dirt. But if you were to do it in dirt, cover it up, maybe you might get more rot at the top than here, but you cover it up, it would look prettier. It's just a fun experiment, like I said, for kids and stuff like that, because kids like the instant gratification, and you might not want them playing with certain things that leave a good smell. Like tomatoes aren't too bad, but you start plucking them, you get that smell in your hands, or certain sensitivities, obviously. But if they're playing with it and rip it off, you're not like, oh no, all that hard work. It's just like you poked a hole in a potato and you set it in water. Super easy. Next thing, well, for one, these both did something in about a week. Last time I did one of these. Super small growth on the sweet potato, but eventually it does grow pretty wild. One thing that I got to germinate in about 3 days, which is kind of cool, is lentils. We do a lot of lentils, being vegan. If you ever do like our chilies and stuff like that, a lot of times just lentils just a good protein source, lots of good vitamins, and it's super easy. You just go to the bulk section in Walmart or Anthony's Goods off of like Amazon or something like that, and I dropped 2 in some soil 3 days ago, and one's already about that tall. So it's pretty cool. Once again, it's just like a fun experiment. Like, have you ever grown lentils? I haven't. I just tried it because I thought it'd be cool, and it's growing. It's just one of those things that you might already have something like this in your house. Like I said, this might be more of a person specific. A lot of people do have this in our home or in their home, but you kind of have to be a certain person to have lentils because it's more of a vegan, vegetarian, or you're using it for a very specific reason if you're not. So that's kind of cool. The germination time, like I said, 3 days for one. The other one has not quite popped up, so it could be between like that 3 and 5 day period. Super easy, cool to grow. If you were to plant it outside, I mean, lentils are great for you. If you can harvest that, awesome. Another one, Next two are actually people specific as well. You might have this if you have kids, that kind of stuff as well. Chia seeds, super, super easy to grow. There's been multiple times, because these things are just so tiny. A little bit of a glare, but they are, if you've seen them before, you know, but if not, they're just slightly bigger than a grain of sand. And there's been many times where we've thrown these in yogurts or muffins, just to get like that little bit of extra protein, extra fiber. It's like kind of a superfood as well. They're just really good for you. But you drop one or two because they kind of stick to your fingers a little bit. They're not sticky. They're just so light that any oils in your fingers, or just anytime you pick something up, you're going to have a little bit leftovers. Like you do sugar, you got a little sugar in your fingers. Same thing. We've noticed so many times where you go, okay, I spilled a little bit, and you go wipe the counters down, you rinse the sponge off, you put it back on the little drying rack, and then you notice that very little bit of moisture and a couple seeds got in there, and our sponges have little tiny sprouts from chia seeds. It's crazy. A lot of people can get lucky within about a week of getting a really good sprout, which is crazy if you think about, okay, well, how many times have I washed dishes with Dawn and it didn't kill the seedling? Like it's just crazy that like it was just really resilient in my case. And once again, chia seeds, awesome, super healthy for you, easy to grow. They're a little expensive, but I mean, when this thing is full, it has thousands and thousands of seeds. Where if you were to try to find something that was off of Amazon and you were like looking for chia seeds for planting, everything's gonna have that markup. Like, oh, you want to grow something, not just eat it. So, well, that's a different kind of person. There's going to be a markup for it. There's markups for everything, obviously. So you can go to the store, buy chia seeds, you're good. A lot of things will grow as long as it's not, I think it's irradiated. I think that's what it is. And I haven't really seen those. I've always been told to look out for those when you're growing stuff from the grocery store, that they'll have like a little sticker that's irradiated, and it basically says they do something to it to make sure that the seeds will not grow, whether they're trying to make sure it doesn't spoil quicker, something to start growing off, as an example, like potatoes, and they start sprouting. I don't know if that's the reason, or if they just don't want you growing off their scraps. Next thing, kind of similar to chia seeds, another little superfood, a little bigger, flaxseed. Flaxseed, super healthy as well. You're gonna get a lot of like your omegas and stuff like that. Vegan, vegetarians, pretty important. Not super expensive, but more expensive than what you might pay for a lot of random just snacks, like supplement type things. But bigger bag, a lot heavier. Seeds are definitely a little bit bigger, and you just get thousands and thousands of seeds. This also takes about that week and a half period. Obviously, everybody's a little bit different as far as kind of what you're using, what kind of water you're using, the domes, heat lamp, or heat pads, stuff like that. Super easy to grow, and flaxseed is a great cover crop. So if I had more time, like I said, I had a lot of issues with just crappy dirt that I bought from the store, just trying to speed things along, is that I had a few ideas on cover crops, but I was too late. I still had things growing. I was still kind of holding out for certain things, and unfortunately it just didn't work out. These things are very hardy. They will last through the winters usually. If not, like, I guess obviously depends where you're at. I mean, if you're having negative temperatures, you're probably gonna see these die off pretty quickly. But from what I've read, a lot of times when you use cover crops, I think a lot of people do the till-in method or the chop and draw. Because a lot of times for cover crops, you can let them die and they'll lay over. These ones are just a lot more hardy. Once again, it's just kind of cool, like growing flaxseed. I'm actually going to be doing a microgreens mixture with a little bit of flaxseed and with a little bit of chia seed as well. So that'll be another video, pretty fun to do, just to kind of show you maybe where they're at in about that 2-week mark, because they both take about a week and a half to germinate minimum. So that's a fun one as well. It's just different. It looks kind of cool. It's unique. The whole thing is about experimenting with something that's fun. You could harvest flax. You could harvest chia seeds. You could harvest lentils. But they're just like fun things that you might have around the house that you can just throw in dirt, and you don't have to worry about wasting your seeds if you were, I don't know, spending $3 a pack on each individual seed, where $5-6 would be a jar full. It's a no-brainer. You're just wanting to experiment. You don't know maybe what kind of climates you have when you can try to plant stuff. I know for the most part you can just look at what zone you're in and see the zone planting times and stuff like that, but it's fun to experiment. You never know. You could be the exception on when you can grow things. You might have a little bit more sun, too much shade. don't waste your money if you already have something. Try it out like this. Next thing, a little bit different, but super easy to do. If you ever buy like a basil plant from the store, eventually you can get them to bolt. And when they bolt, seeds are super easy. I have not planted these because I have so much basil right now. This is what I harvested from my cinnamon basil plant, and I harvested so many seeds. Same thing with any basil. Yeah, even mints, you want to make sure that you don't really just plant it in the ground unless you're okay with it kind of taking over. Because like I said, the seeds, there's a lot of seeds and it was a very small plant. So it's just kind of one of those fun things that, I don't know, basil's cool, has a cool smell. You can crush it if you wanted to make your oils out of it. Your balsamic, basil, mozzarella caprese salads, obviously vegan because that's what we do. But I don't know, it's just cool to grow basil, especially just the different kind of basil that maybe you haven't heard of or seen or tasted. I have a purple basil going on as well. So it's just fun to grow different varieties of stuff like that. I mean, sometimes growing something random, something new is just more exciting, kind of pulls you into it, maybe starts that little bit of a passion. You're like, you know what, I do love growing, I just like growing certain things. Another easy one, it's not radiated, which I've never had that come across, is the bell pepper seeds. Super easy. You cut a bell pepper open, there's 60, 75 seeds fall out. You dry them, super easy to start. Now, they do take a couple weeks to start. A lot of peppers are a little picky. They definitely want light. They need moisture, obviously, but for a long period of time. So a lot of people don't like doing them just because if they're not really on top of it, you might have like that little bit of surface mold, or you might let them dry out, and that's such a pain when you spend 2 weeks trying to germinate something and you get distracted, dries out a little bit, and you're like, oh no, I'm sure it's fine, and you water it, and then you wait a week and you're like, uh-oh, and you keep watering it, and you're like 2 weeks in after that and you're like, I must have killed them, and you just wasted a bunch of time. So super fun. If you live in like a kind of a wet climate, as long as it's sunny, you can probably throw them outside and get them started up like that. You can always throw a little bit of mulch and straw if you're terrible at watering, which I have been in the past as well. I don't have an example with me, but the last one is just kind of a bonus one. Since I don't have it with me, I don't count it as a 7, is tomatoes. They're just so easy. And if you're growing for fun, like more like children's purposes, kind of showing them, teaching them, I will be doing this with my son on the sooner side. A little too young, he might instantly just kind of destroy it. But is tomatoes, where you've probably seen the method before. You literally just cut little slices, and you have the ring of tomatoes like you'd put on a sandwich or fry up or whatever, and has all the little seeds in the middle. And all you do, throw it in the dirt, throw some dirt on top of it, a little extra moisture, and you'll have a bunch of little tiny sprouts. Does it make sense if you're really trying to grow tomatoes to do it that method? No, because you have to pick a bunch off. Maybe if you were to cut the cucumber or the tomato into like 18 little mini slices of pizza kind of thing, you could plant little chunks here and there. You still have to thin so much out. It's not worth it in my opinion. However, for kids, they're going to see like all this growth. You let them fight over nutrients for 2 months, you're going to have a bunch of plants. I mean, you could definitely kill some in the end, and kind of let whatever's left grow. But I think it's more of just a fun purpose of like, hey, look at all these grow. Look what we did. This is what we eat. This is where our food comes from. And I think it's just super cool. So this is just a few things that I think they grow. If you have them at home, you should. They're cool little experiments. If you have kids, even better. Kind of teach them where our food comes from, how it comes from it, the differences, the taste differences, what kind of varieties there are. Because there's so many kids that are like, I don't like tomatoes. But you have just so many, I mean, just so many different varieties of everything. So I think this is really cool to have something, let them play in the dirt, have a little hobby, a little hands-on, a little Montessori play. So at least for now, that's all I got. But like I said, the next video on the gardening spot, I do tools as well, obviously for the yard tools, because I have a lot of yard work to do. And I like to review stuff because certain things need to be better. But until the next gardening video with microgreens, which will be more than just the flaxseed chia seeds, we'll go from there and we'll see how it goes. And that might be a little bit longer because obviously the week 2 germination period depends on what else I want to grow in there. If it's a fail, success, that kind of stuff, because it will be just a sunny windowsill. I'm not going to do any grow lights, nothing like that. But until next time, I appreciate it.